Worked for my family business for 12 years, but my dad gave it to my estranged sister and her rich fiancé instead of me. Then begged for my help when they abandoned him after his heart at CK. I, 36F, got kicked out of the business that my father had established, just 8 months ago. For context, I have been a part of the family business for almost 12 years now. We have a jewelry business that was started by my grandfather on my father's side, then it went on to my father, and after that, I expected that it would come to me. After all, I am the older sister and I have always taken a keen interest in the business ever since I was in my teenage years. And my dad always kept telling me that eventually, he would expect me to take over the business anyway. Because my sister, 33F, did not seem interested in having a career, she just wanted to get married and have a family. So if he was going to have an heir for the business, it was going to be me, and it has always been taken for granted. There is no formal documentation of it, but I guess I should have arranged for something like that because I had served as my dad's personal assistant for 12 years. I even quit my first job just after 2 years of working there, since I did not want to come off as entitled and wanted to get some genuine work experience on my own before working with my father, but I left because my dad wanted me to start working with him. And in spite of everything that I had done, I still got kicked out of the business in favor of my sister and my sister's ridiculously rich fiancé. She had not even been part of the family for the past 15 years, since she had made a couple of really bad decisions and my parents had decided to cut her out of the family. Right after she turned 18, she announced that she would not be going to college and she wanted to explore and find herself. That did not go down with my parents, and they told her that she would either go to college or she could leave. They had given her an ultimatum, and she, being the kind of person that she is, decided to leave and move in with her boyfriend at the time. They did not last for long and they broke up within 6 months. Then, she showed up at our doorstep once again, requesting to be let back into the family. Before she had left, she had said a lot of awful things to my parents, like how she did not need them anymore and how she was better off without a family like this. That they were not even good enough for her because her boyfriend and his family were doing much better financially, compared to us. So she had really put us down and completely insulted and humiliated us before she had left, and when she came back, my dad told her that the conditions that he had put forward to her the last time still stood. So now, she had to agree to go to college and get a degree, no matter what she chose, or she could just stay out. My sister tried to argue and fight her way back into the family, but my dad was pretty adamant. So once again, she was supposed to leave, and this time, she said that she was never going to come back again. For the next 15 years, we would only see her at family events, but never otherwise. And whenever she had a life update, we would find out about it from other relatives because she refused to speak to us. My mom and I tried to contact her several times, but because we were still on good terms with my father, she refused to speak to us as well. I have to say, she was really proud, and she stuck to her words. She did not come back until my dad tried to re-establish contact with her himself. She kind of figured her life out on her own, although, not exactly in the way that would have expected her. Like she had promised us, she did not go to college because she just wasn't interested. However, for a few months, she lived with her friend and then, she got a job and started working for herself to fund the life she wanted. I think it was pretty good for her because, along the way, I guess she matured a lot. She switched between jobs pretty frequently, but for the past couple of years, she had been working at an advertising agency. My family knows all of this about her because she did keep in touch with the rest of our family and our relatives would keep us updated, and she knew about it. About a year ago, my dad felt dangerously ill, and we almost thought that we had lost him because he was having a lot of problems with his heart, and the cardiologist told us that it was not looking too good for him until he implemented some serious lifestyle changes. And, during that time, when he thought that it was over, my dad decided to finally contact my sister and end the bad blood between the two of them. And because my sister had grown up considerably over the course of the past 15 years, she finally decided to come back and become a part of the family again. The day that she visited us, she came alone and we did not talk much about her life because we were just too busy reminiscing about the past and she did not want to make it all about herself, so she did not tell us much about everything else that she had been up to, the information that we did not get from our relatives. We knew how she was doing professionally, we just didn't know anything about her personal life. Anyway, she just seemed happy to be back and all of us were focused on the reconciliation between father and daughter. It was a very emotional reunion, and I was happy about all of it back then, not knowing what was about to happen later. When she visited us for the second time, she brought along her fiancé, which came as a huge shock to all of us. She told us that she had been dating her fiancé for the past 3 years and only recently did they get engaged. Nobody else in the family knew about it, which is why we hadn't been able to find out about it either, because they had been keeping it under wraps. The flow of information was not just from her end to us, but she had also known, thanks to our relatives, that our father was having some complications with his health, but she did not know exactly how serious it was, which is why she had not bothered to visit us. And she had thought that it was not exactly appropriate to announce the engagement at the time, so she had kept it private. But now, she believed that it was about time to introduce him to the family and so, she had brought him along. He seemed like a nice guy and I could tell he was pretty well financially off since his clothes, his watch, and shoes were all expensive. I was happy for my sister because I felt like she was finally with the kind of guy that she wanted to be with, somebody who was financially stable, knew what he wanted to do in life, and had his future sorted out for him. After talking to both of them, we got to know that her fiancé, just like her first boyfriend, was also the son of a pretty wealthy man who ran his own chain of fast food restaurants. But unlike her first boyfriend, this guy actually seemed to be serious about her, and we could tell that the two of them were really in love. I was genuinely happy for her, and I remember congratulating the two of them. I never thought that my father or even my sister and her fiancé would do what they did. But after about 3 weeks of knowing them, my father suddenly decided that it would be for the best if we let them take over our business as well. One fine morning, he just called me up and told me that he wanted me to come home because he wanted to talk to me about something. I was at work at the time, since I was the one who had been taking care of everything ever since my dad's heart health had declined, and I was basically the boss at the time. He just hadn't officially retired yet, but I knew that it was going to happen at some point. At that point, I was confident that I would be in line to step up and be the CEO of our business. But that one day changed everything, and all of a sudden, my sister and her fiancé were the ones who were in the running to take over the business that I had been taking care of forever. When I went to my parents' house that day, my sister and her fiancé were not there, but my parents were, and they looked pretty grim. After some small talk, my dad finally delivered the crushing blow, and I really thought that he was joking about it. But when I realized that he was serious, I just couldn't believe it. When I asked him why he would take such a decision after just 3 weeks of knowing this guy, he told me that he had his reasons and he refused to tell me, but after a considerable amount of arguing, he finally told me that the reason he was handing over the business to my sister and her fiancé instead of me, as promised, was because he believed that they would be more capable than I am. The cherry on top was that he believed that this could be a gift of welcome to the two of them, back into the family. Since they were going to start a new chapter in their life by getting married in a couple of months, they believed that this could be their wedding gift. I tried to convince him that this was a horrible idea because a wedding gift need not be as big as an entire business just because the guy seemed wealthy, and on top of that, he had always led me to believe that I would be the one inheriting it when he eventually retired. I had built my whole life around this fact, and, all of a sudden, he was snatching it away from me to give to people who had nothing to do with us for the past 15 years. I tried to tell him that maybe he could make us partners in the business, and attempt to bargain and negotiate with him because this was my future that we were talking about. But my father was quite firm about what he believed, and he said that he was going to let them take over because he believes that it would be in better hands since my sister's fiancé's father had already built something of his own, and he knew that they would be able to expand our jewelry business twice as fast as me. I begged him for one chance, but he was just not ready to listen to me, and I was literally heartbroken that day. I wasn't upset just because I was losing out on something so big, but mostly because I had devoted 12 years of my life to this, only to get nothing in return. I hadn't even been able to win my father's respect for me because if he had any respect for the kind of work and effort that I had put into the business, he would not have kicked me out. That was the day that I decided to cut all ties with my family because I just had nothing left to say to them. I had expected my sister to at least fight for me, but I was let down by her as well because they gladly accepted their so-called wedding gift, which was my life's work. My sister had always known that I wanted to take over our family business once my dad retired. I had literally been talking about it nonstop ever since I was 13, and all my life, I had looked forward to it. So it wasn't as if she had not known that when she was accepting the wedding gift, she was accepting my dreams and taking them to be her own. She made a post about it on social media to thank our parents for this, and with that, she announced her engagement. After that, nobody from the family even bothered to reach out to me. And I think that was the most hurtful part of all, the fact that they did not even seem to care about me. The day that I had left my father's house argument, they stopped speaking to me, and I felt like I had been used and 12 years of my life had gone to absolute waste. I was just thankful that I had enough savings to fall back on, and for a couple of months, I could afford to not do anything and just try to put my life back together again because I felt like everything had fallen apart. That was 8 months ago, and after that, I started therapy because I could tell that I was spiraling into a depression that needed to be addressed immediately, or else, I don't know what I would have done. And I would feel really sick looking at all the posts that my sister would share, so I had to block her. I also had to tell my relatives that I was not in touch with them anymore, and I did not want to hear anything about them. I literally requested them to not tell me anything that my family was up to, no matter how big it seemed, because I don't think I wanted to know anything about it. And they respected it and kept everything secret from me. So I had no idea that for the past couple of months, my dad's health had been steadily deteriorating, and my sister and her fiancé couldn't care less about any of that. It was not until 1 week ago that I found out about all of that when I received a call from my dad, and he told me that he was in the hospital because he had suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of the night, and he wanted me to come to see him in the hospital. I had blocked his phone number, so he had to use somebody else's phone to call me, and honestly, I felt super guilty about it. But then I remembered what he had done to me 8 months ago, and I kind of felt less guilty. Anyway, once he had called me and told me that he was suffering, I told him that I would be right there to see him. And so, I left everything and I went over to the hospital to check him out. My mother and my dad were there, but to my surprise, neither my sister nor her fiancé were anywhere to be found. I found that pretty confusing because as far as I was concerned, they were all really close, given that they were running the family business. I couldn't help myself and I ended up asking them about the whereabouts of my sister and her fiancé as soon as I walked into the hospital room. And my father told me, with great disappointment, that my sister was apparently too busy to come see him. And so was her fiancé. I found that shocking because as somebody who has been running the business for 12 years, it's a lucrative thing and it pretty much works on its own, and unless there is some major crisis to deal with, we don't have to be present at our workplace at all times of the day. At least that's how it was when I used to run things. I can't say anything for how it is now. Anyway, when my dad told me that they were too busy to come see him, I asked him if they had been down there to the hospital to see him at all ever since he had his heart attack, and he told me that they hadn't. He had called them, but they had just texted back, replying that they were too busy and that they would come to see him once he had been discharged. These details were really shocking to me, and I guess my dad realized that he had made a grave mistake by handing over the reins of the business to my sister and her fiancé. So he told me that that was actually one of the main reasons that he had called me to apologize for what he had done. He told me that he was really guilty and regretful that he had kicked me out of the business in spite of all my hard work and effort, but now, he wanted to make things right with me and invite me back into the family and business. He told me what had happened, my sister and her fiancé not showing up at the hospital for him. He had realized that they did not care about him the way he had them. He also told me that this is not even the first time that they have refused to show up for him, and in the past couple of months, they have been sort of disconnected. He told me that after he had handed over the business to the two of them, they had started visiting him less and less. Whereas, earlier, they would be visiting him every other day to check up on him and how he was doing. When his health initially started deteriorating, they did not bother to come visit him and always said that they were too busy at work, which is not something he believes because both he and I knew that nobody was so busy that they couldn't take out an hour from their day. And especially them, given the fact that they lived just a couple of blocks away from my parents' house. Anyway, he never said anything about it, but now, they had crossed a line and my dad couldn't take this sort of disrespect anymore. So he wanted to take his company back and give it to the person who actually deserved it. We had a discussion about all of this in the hospital room and then he invited me to join the business back again and I was overjoyed. He apologized to me for everything, and even though I'm still not completely over it, I did forgive him at that time because, to me, nothing was more important than getting back what I deserved. And if, for that, I had to forgive my father, I was ready to do it. But the problem now is that he has had this conversation with my sister as well, and he has told her that he wants her to step away because he has finally realized that, even though he has always cared about his daughter, she has never been there for him and he cannot tolerate this sort of disrespect anymore. So he was asking for his company back and was giving it to the person who actually deserved it. And they could look out for themselves. Unsurprisingly, my sister is upset, and for some reason, she thinks that I am the one to blame for this. She called me up this morning and really went off on me, telling me that I am a horrible human being and that she can't even believe that I'm doing something so cruel to her. I don't even understand why she's being so crazy about it. I feel like there is something that we don't know, but anyway, she's acting like she has lost everything and it's all because of me. But truth be told, I think it's her own fault that she did not visit our dad in the hospital. I mean, a cardiac arrest is a big deal and she could have taken time off of work to go see him. She was the one who had been selfish, and now, I was getting what I actually deserved in the beginning. And 8 months ago, she had absolutely no problem accepting a gift that she knew she did not deserve, so why should I turn my back on something that I actually do deserve? Anyway, she is pretty torn up about it, and I tried to console her, but she just hung up on me in the middle of my sentence. And now I'm wondering if I'm the bad guy because clearly, every time something happens, I have to take the fall for it, and I just feel really tired of this. Ida, for allowing my father to ask my sister and her fiancé to step out of the family business so I can get it. Update 1. Thank you guys so much for the response to my post. I kind of knew that I did not deserve the flack that I was getting from my sister, but hearing it from you guys just made me believe it even more. If even strangers who know nothing about our lives think that I deserve the business, then I have nothing more to say in my defense, and I don't even think that I need to. It has been a couple of days since my last conversation with my sister, and so far, I have not heard back from her yet. She hasn't blocked me anywhere, so that's a good sign. But I just have this feeling that there is more to this than what she is telling us. Because I don't think that anybody who had a rich fiancé would act that way on losing out on our business. I can't say for sure, but I have a theory that maybe all is not what it seems to be with her fiancé. Some of you had asked me about this in the comment section of the original post, but I did not say anything about it because I did not think that was relevant at the time. But now, I don't think that her fiancé and his family are doing well financially right now. Because from what I have heard, his dad's company is facing loss after loss and they have been unable to recover for the past year or so. And I think that this was their way of sneaking into our family business and then taking over eventually. I haven't been able to figure out why exactly my sister would behave the way that she did when she got to know that I was being asked to rejoin the family business and she was being asked to step out. If she has a rich fiancé who has her own company, she has nothing to worry about. And yet, she was devastated. Something just did not add up, and I think she's going to come around and tell us about it pretty soon. Anyway, we are just lucky that my father did not sign any documents or contracts and did not officially hand over the business to my sister and her fiancé, because that would have caused a lot of trouble for us. He was still the CEO, they were just working under him in the position that I had previously. He was training them to take over eventually, but now, I don't think that's gonna happen. I have spoken to my father and he told me that my sister is very upset, but he can't afford to care about that right now. His only priority is to just sign over everything to me and then, I can handle it all. So that's what he's going to do. He's already speaking to a lawyer and having the papers drawn up, so I can take over as soon as possible and it can be made formal and official. I'm really just very excited and I don't even think that my sister's dramatic outbursts can put a damper on this for me right now. Update 2. Hi, so it's been a couple of weeks since my post here and I just wanted to tell you guys that I am officially the new CEO of my dad's jewelry business. The handover is complete now and I am officially one in charge, which feels so good to say. I knew that this day was going to come, but there were a couple of delays in the process because of my sister. Coming to her, she is absolutely not happy about any of this and I guess I can finally say it now, my theory about it was true. She and her fiancé were actually, very cleverly, trying to sneak their way into our family business and take over so that they would have something to fall back on when her fiancé's father finally let go of his company. It was my sister who had planted the idea of welcoming them back into the family by handing over the business to his future son-in-law and my father's head, and he had unfortunately fallen for it. I only discovered all of this recently, after reconnecting with my father, and he told me that he was not thinking straight. He was being greedy because he had believed that for some reason, a man from such an established business family would be better at handling everything than I would be. He had originally intended on retaining me in the position that I had been working in so far, but when I told him that I was not interested in the business if I did not get to be the head of the company, he lost his temper and that led to these 8 months of absolute misery for both of us. Thankfully, he came back to his senses in the nick of time and we were able to avoid a huge disaster. Because right now, the credibility of my sister's fiancé and his father in the market is absolutely zero. I had been hearing from people about rumors of his father's business being on the verge of getting shut down, but I hadn't believed it because I was sure that my dad would reach out to me if something like this was about to happen. And my father had thought I would reach out to him if something of this magnitude was going to happen. And so, neither of us reached out to each other. Which was pretty foolish of us, but anyway, now my sister herself has confessed what she was trying to do and kept her ego aside to speak to me. She reached out to me a couple of days ago, just before it was finalized that I would become the CEO, and she told me that she and her fiancé desperately needed jobs because they were not sure of how many more days his dad would be able to stick it out. So now, she was asking me for help and I told her that I would think about it. I don't have an issue with hiring them, it's just that I will never ever be able to trust them again because I knew what their original intentions were. So that's what I'm kind of feeling weird about right now. I do want to help her out, but at the same time, how can I even hire people whom I don't trust? Anyway, I told her to give me some time and she has agreed to do that so far, but I don't know what I'm gonna do. Update 3. Hey, so I have decided not to hire my sister and her fiancé. I know this will probably make me seem really selfish to some people, but honestly, I can't trust these people. When my dad had offered them to take over the company at first, they had accepted it and they haven't even bothered to reach out to me for the next 8 months. They had absolutely zero compassion or empathy for anybody apart from themselves, and I don't want people like that around me or working for me. So with a heart, I had to tell my sister that I couldn't help her out. Obviously, she did not take it too well. She showed up in my office the other day and threw a tantrum, accusing me of being heartless and selfish, and she told me that she regretted ever even letting me have the company back. I thought that was weird because she did not have any part to play in that. It was my father's decision because he was the head and whatever he said. It was not my decision and right now it is not her decision. So for her to act as if she did a huge favor to me was just ridiculous. I would have tolerated all of that, but that statement just really annoyed me. So I told her that she did not do me any favors, not now and even previously, she did not seem to care about me. So it's pretty stupid of her to expect me to do the same for her. I asked her politely but she refused and kept screaming at me. She was totally undermining me, so I decided to call the police and have her escorted out because I couldn't deal with this level of drama. I'm already pretty busy with work and I just don't need this right now. But then once the cops showed up, she did not have much to say and just left. It has been a few days since then, and we haven't heard back from her, so I am assuming that she should leave us alone. And even if she doesn't, I don't care because I'll get a restraining order against her.